pull down into the Canaries. We're talking about some sunshine, temperatures into the high 20s, say around the 80s Fahrenheit mark. Not bad really for many areas, although still pretty windy and also showery across Italy. But the main theme across Europe is a sunny one. It's really us that's seeing all the action at the moment. Here's the summary.
More coverage.
So that news just in. Well, let's update you on the very latest headlines. Let's get the latest on the day's events.
More correspondence.
Some warning shots were fired from this Israeli watch tower.
The force of the blast blew debris several hundred metres.
More analysis.
Just how is that investigation going? Quite a lot has actually been said behind the scenes.
Which means if it happens here, 24 hours a day. BBC News 24.
Good morning, you're watching BBC News 24. I'm Deborah Mackenzie. In a moment, a special Asia Today on the elections in Indonesia. But first, at 3:30, a summary of the main stories. The Iraqi Prime Minister Ayad Alawi will continue his talks in London later today on ways to restore order in Iraq. He's expected to see the Foreign Secretary, Jack Straw, and the Defence Secretary, Jeff Hoon. The talks follow his meeting with Tony Blair, after which Mr Alawi promised that elections due next January would go ahead despite the violent campaign by insurgents. And the Foreign Office has made an appeal on Arabic television for the release of a British engineer held hostage in Iraq. The appeal called for the release of Kenneth Bigley, who was kidnapped along with 2 American colleagues on Thursday. Their captors have reportedly threatened to kill them unless Iraqi women prisoners being held by the US are released before a deadline set for today. Officials in Haiti say more than 50 people have lost their lives as Tropical Storm Jean swept across the country. 3 days of storms have lashed the that Haiti shares with the Dominican Republic, triggering flash floods in north of both countries. In May, floods killed more than 3,000 people on the southern Haitian-Dominican border. 1 man has been killed and another seriously injured in a helicopter crash in the Scottish Highlands. The small civilian helicopter crashed into a hillside near Loch Linney. Emergency services, including the Royal Navy and RAF, were called to the scene. The injured man is being treated at a hospital in Fort William. Police are formally linking investigations into a series of attacks on women in southwest London. Officers are to investigate similarities between the murders of Marsha McDonnell and Amélie de Lagrange, as well as 4 other attacks in the area. But detectives admit they're yet to make any forensic links between the attacks. The Liberal Democrats will explain later today how they plan to pay for the key policies in their election manifesto. They've promised to abolish university tuition fees, introduce a local income tax and provide free personal care for the elderly. Their Treasury spokesman, Vince Cable, is to address the party's conference in Bournemouth. Draft guidelines which could allow judges to impose lighter sentences on convicted murderers have been criticised by the Conservatives ahead of their unveiling today. It's thought the proposals would let judges give sentences possibly reduced by 5 years in return for offenders pleading guilty and sparing the victims' relatives the ordeal of giving evidence at a trial. The Conservatives said this would not act as a serious deterrent for potential murderers. Virgin will mark the completion of major work on the West Coast main line between London and Manchester today. A tilting train will attempt a record-breaking non-stop run between the 2 cities, with improved passenger services starting in a week's time. But there's still another year of engineering work ahead before the improvements reach Scotland. Don't forget, you can keep up to date with all the headlines, weather and sport through our interactive service. Just press the red button and then follow the on-screen instructions. That's the summary now on BBC News 24, Asia Today.
Hello and welcome to this special edition of Asia Today from Jakarta. I'm Rachel Harvey. Indonesians are today going to the polls to choose their next president. It's an election which has been overshadowed by the bomb blast here outside the Australian embassy 11 days ago.
After a first round in July, the contest itself has come down to a straight race between the incumbent, President Megawati Sukarno-Putri, and her former Security Minister, Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono. It's the first time that Indonesians have been allowed to choose their leader in a direct election. So how far do people think Indonesia has come down the road to democracy?
No one want to squeeze me. They might take away my life.
He may be an aging rocker, but he's still got the moves.
Want to squeeze me.
Harry Rusli is a bit of a maverick. But for these street kids, he's become mentor, role model and protector. At 53 years old, Harry finds himself in the position of Grand Master, teaching the teachers how to run a junior jam session. His anti-establishment views landed him in prison during the authoritarian regime of former President Suharto. 6 years of democratic reforms have done little to blunt his cynicism.
Politicians now are just as bad as before. There's lots of dirty business going on in Parliament. Those people don't have hearts. Money has corrupted democracy. It's like we're living near a gutter and we don't notice the bad smell anymore.
But others haven't yet given up hope. In 1998, Firliana was a law student. It was her generation that took to the streets to demand democracy. After 3 decades in power, Suharto was forced to step down. Nowadays, Firliana is a researcher fighting for women's rights. Indonesian politics may not be perfect, she says, but at least a direct presidential election should be harder to manipulate.
I'm sure there is still a lot of money politics happening out there, but how can you bribe 200 million people across Indonesia? Democracy is about maintaining the right leader in place. When the leader is not right anymore, we have the opportunity to vote for another one. And if we skip this opportunity, means that we're being irresponsible for the future of this country.
Entering this new era, the older generation is also embracing change. At 73, Rahim Ruskan is moving house. He has plenty of memories to pack away. As a government-appointed prosecutor during the Suharto years, Rahim voted the way he was told to. He's glad those days are behind him.
This is the right time for people to make their own choice, because if not, the same problem will go around the same circle, So let's give the chance to people to decide what they want to do, what they want to have as to choose the president.
Harry Rusli isn't convinced his vote will make any difference. He's waiting to hear a different rhythm in Indonesian politics. But most people are expected to cast their ballots and make their voices heard. Well, those voices have mainly been demanding improvements in the economy. But security has also been pushed to the fore by the bomb attack. The explosion devastated this business area of the city. Well, I've been talking to a group of younger people here in Jakarta. I asked them first, did they think the bombing would have an impact on the election?
Yes, I think so. Because apparently after the last bomb and nothing happened. No, I mean the bomb before the Australian embassy, and then afterwards things got calmed down. People started to think that, oh, security is pretty okay, people are doing okay. But then when the bomb exploded, I think it took a lot of people by surprise, and they're a bit more worried and think that security needs to be tightened up now.
What about you, Don? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think security is always in people's concern. Well, particularly in this election, I think it would also affect people's decision when they vote for the candidates, because a particular candidate has portrayed himself as the one who's better in maintaining security in the country. So I think it would affect people's decision.
But before the bomb, security really wasn't an issue being discussed in the campaign, was it, Teddy? It was other issues to do with the economy.
Yes, indeed. Before the bomb, the economy is the major issues, but now it will not leave the economy behind, but it will put extra homework for those two candidates on how in their campaign, their package, their campaign on dealing with these two issues, which is really, really urgent in Indonesia, and people will put extra concern on not only economy, but also on how the candidate dealing with the security issues. I believe so.
Do you think security issues can really be solved, though, just by changing a government? Do you think that there are leaders out there who can make a difference on issues?
Yeah, I really think that especially the candidates for presidentials can have a new paradigm or can have a new concept of how doing a governance, and they actually have positive ideas about how to solve security problem and socialist problem. It actually depends on how the people trust the government and how the government can use this trust by transparency and telling it to the people what they're doing, and such thing. It's very important to measure is democracy or is security problem can be solved in this era.
And do you, Santi, think that democracy is open and transparent enough in Indonesia? Is it rooted enough?
No, I don't think that democracy is enough transparent in Indonesia, because we can see that there are many cases about government corruption thing that has not been opened for the people, and people don't know who is actually the people behind those corruption thing. So I think it's not quite transparent for the people. I think that to measure whether it's success or not, we need those kind of transparency, especially in Indonesia.
So for you, Donny, what would be the top priority? Whoever's elected president, what should they put top of their agenda?
Well, I think economy is always the one that should be prioritized in Indonesia, because we're very much behind in terms of economy, and also the next president should prioritize on the education sector, because the country is having the lowest percentage of budget allocated to education sector in Asia, if I'm not mistaken. So those two sectors are the most important.
And do you have confidence, Ida, that they'll actually do it, that the next government will make a change?
Well, probably not really a radical change, but probably little steps towards progress. Yeah, I think I'm quite confident there will be little steps towards progress in the future government, whoever it will be.
And Teddy, then finally a word from you, and then to each of the others of you in one word. Are you positive or a little bit worried about the future of democracy?
I believe I'm positive.
You're positive?
Positive.
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 Well, an upbeat mood there, certainly. And this is being hailed as a significant moment for Indonesia. But just how significant? I've been talking to Andy Malarangang, a founder member of the democratic think tank, the Freedom Institute.
Well, this is a significant moment because this is the first time we, the people in Indonesia, would directly elect our president. And so far, it has been a peaceful moment so far, and not a single person died because of election-related violence. So it's the crucial moment for Indonesia to find quality leadership for Indonesia to get out of the crisis.
Exactly what kind of crisis is Indonesia facing now?
A lot of people still feel that the crisis is still lingering because of unemployment of about 40 million people, corruption is still rampant, and although there are some improvement in macroeconomic indicators, but for average people in day-to-day life, they can see that there are still economic crisis.
Corruption is clearly a big issue. It has been throughout the election campaign. But is there the leadership within Indonesia willing to push through an anti-corruption drive?
We are expecting that. We thought that reform would bring us to a better governance, good governance, clean government. But so far, if you see Indonesian position in terms of ASEAN countries, we are still number one in corruption indicators, and number 6 in the world. So one of the reform or change that we would like to see is where the new government committed to eradicate corruption.
In general then, do you feel positive or a little bit nervous about the future of democracy in Indonesia?
No, I'm very positive of democracy. Democracy, meaning that people is the sovereign, and from now and then you can kick out the rascal when it turns out they don't do their job properly, and pick up a new guy. That's the idea of democracy, and I think I think we have shown that the people of Indonesia ready for democracy, are mature enough for democracy, and so far we've proven that.
Andi Malarangang. We'll have continuing coverage of Indonesia's presidential election here on BBC World throughout the day. But for now, from this special edition of Asia Today from Jakarta and me, Rachel Harvey, goodbye.